You know, my friends, one of the most interesting things I've observed is that people everywhere, no matter where they come from, how rich or poor, educated or not, are all chasing one thing: happiness. But have you noticed something? The more we chase happiness, the more it seems to run away from us. We think, I'll be happy when I get that job, or I'll be happy when I lose weight, or I'll be happy when people finally start appreciating me. And when we reach that goal, temporarily we feel joy. But after a few days, that happiness slips away again. Then we set another target, and another, and another, as if happiness is always sitting at the next milestone. But the truth is, happiness is not something we reach, it's something we realize. It's not waiting at the finish line, it's walking beside us every single day. Today, I want to share with you something beautiful: how to learn to be happy every single day while still progressing, growing, and moving forward. Because life is not about choosing between happiness and success. It's about learning to walk hand in hand with both. And once you master that art, no circumstance, no failure, and no delay can steal your peace again. So let's explore this together. 10 powerful lessons to help you find joy every day, even as you continue to grow. Gratitude before growth. Such a simple idea, yet it holds the power to completely transform the way we live. You see, most of us have been conditioned to believe that happiness will come as after success. We tell ourselves, once I achieve this, then I'll be happy. But what if happiness was not a reward, but a foundation? What if it was the very soil from which success grows? The truth is, gratitude is that soil. When we learn to appreciate the present, we create a state of mind where growth feels natural, joyful, and effortless. Let's take a moment to reflect. Have you ever met someone who has so much? A great career, a nice car, a comfortable home, and yet still complains about everything. They might have all the things we dream of, but they're still not satisfied. And on the other hand, you might have met someone who has very little but radiates peace. They smile more, they laugh easily, and somehow their presence makes you feel calm. What's the difference? It's not the size of their blessings, it's the size of their gratitude. Gratitude doesn't make life perfect, it makes life enough. In our rush to grow, we often forget to look around and see how far we've already come. Imagine a person climbing a mountain. Every step is progress, but if they only look up, they'll always see how far they still have to go. The climb will feel endless, and exhaustion will follow. But if they pause, turn around, and look at the view, how far they've come, the beauty they've already passed, suddenly their heart fills with strength again. Gratitude is that pause. It gives you energy to keep climbing, not because you've reached the top, but because you remember how far you've come. Let me share something simple from daily life. There was once a man who complained every morning about his job. He hated the traffic, the deadlines, the endless emails. One day, while driving to work, his car broke down in the middle of the road. He had to walk several kilometers to get help. As he walked, tired and frustrated, he saw a man on the sidewalk in a wheelchair, smiling, feeding pigeons with joy. That moment hit him deeply. He realized he had been focusing so much on what wasn't perfect in his life that he had forgotten to be grateful for what was. The fact that he could walk, drive, earn, eat, and live freely. From that day, his morning complaints slowly turned into morning gratitude. He didn't change his job, he changed his mindset, and that changed everything. Gratitude has a way of revealing hidden joy in ordinary moments. Think about how a mother feels when her child gives her a small, messy drawing from school. The paper might be wrinkled, the colors all over the place, but to her, it's priceless. Why? Because she sees love, not perfection. Life gives us messy moments, imperfect days, and unfinished dreams, but when we view them with gratitude, we see beauty even in chaos. Gratitude teaches us that not every blessing comes wrapped in perfection. Some come disguised as challenges, delays, or lessons. Many people think being grateful means you stop growing, that it makes you complacent. But it's the opposite. Gratitude doesn't stop growth, it fuels it. When you appreciate your life, your relationships, your progress, you generate positive energy, and that energy drives you forward. People who complain all the time drain themselves emotionally. They get tired, frustrated, and stuck. But those who begin their day with gratitude find strength in small things. The morning sun, a cup of tea, a kind message, and that energy helps them move forward with joy. Gratitude makes growth sustainable. Try this every night. Before you sleep, write down 3 things you're grateful for. It could be something as simple as, I had a peaceful lunch today, or I heard my child laugh, or I handled a tough situation calmly. Over time, you'll notice a shift. You'll start to notice blessings, even during difficult days. You'll complain less and smile more. Your focus will move from what's missing to what's present, and that shift will make your heart lighter. When the mind stops chasing what it doesn't have, it finally finds peace with what it does. Gratitude also changes how we see people. When you're grateful, you stop expecting perfection from others. You start valuing their efforts, their presence, their intentions. Imagine a friend who is always there for you, but you never thank them. Over time, the relationship starts to feel heavy. But when you express gratitude, even in small ways, it strengthens the bond. Relationships blossom when appreciation replaces expectation. In the end, gratitude is not an act, it's an attitude. It's not about saying thank you once in a while. It's about living with a thankful heart every day. Because when you truly appreciate life as it is, every sunrise feels like a gift, every challenge feels like a lesson, and every person becomes a teacher. Gratitude teaches you to see God's presence in everything, in joy and pain, in success and struggle. So, learn to be grateful before you grow. Because if you only learn to be happy after success, you'll spend your whole life waiting. But if you learn to be grateful now, every day becomes a reason to smile. Growth then becomes a joyful journey, not a desperate chase. The happiest souls are not those who have everything, they are those who see everything as a blessing. And that's the true secret: to be grateful before growth, to be peaceful before perfection, and to be happy every single day, while life unfolds exactly as it should. Detach from outcomes. Such a gentle phrase, yet so difficult to practice. Most of us live our lives tied to results, constantly measuring our worth through what happens after we do something. If the outcome pleases us, we feel good. If it doesn't, we lose peace. But real happiness begins when we can give our best and then let go, trusting that whatever unfolds is exactly what was meant to. Detachment doesn't mean you stop caring, it means you stop clinging. It means you put your heart into the effort, but you don't let your peace depend on what happens next. Think about it. From childhood, we've been trained to focus on outcomes: grades, trophies, promotions, compliments. We were taught that success equals happiness. And so, our minds started linking our emotions to results. If people praise me, I feel valuable. If they criticize me, I feel worthless. But life doesn't always move according to our plans. Sometimes, even when you give your absolute best, things don't go your way. You may prepare day and night for an exam, but the questions are unexpected. You may pour your soul into a relationship, but it ends anyway. You may work tirelessly for an opportunity, and still it slips away. In those moments, if your happiness depends entirely on the outcome, your peace collapses instantly. Imagine an archer. His only job is to draw the bow, aim, and release the arrow. The moment the arrow leaves the bow, it's no longer in his control. The wind, distance, and other factors will decide where it lands. But if he spends his time worrying about the result, instead of focusing on his aim, his hand will tremble, his focus will blur, and his shot will weaken. The wise archer knows, my peace lies in doing my best, not in controlling the rest. In our daily lives, this truth applies everywhere. Let's say you work on a project at the office, putting your full energy, creativity, and time into it. When it's presented, your boss doesn't respond as enthusiastically as you hoped. Now, you have two choices: to feel crushed because you didn't get the reaction you wanted, or to take a deep breath and remind yourself, I did my best. When you detach from outcomes, you free yourself from emotional slavery. You stop handing the keys of your happiness to someone else's reaction or a temporary situation. The mind that clings to results is always restless. It keeps asking, what if I fail? What if they don't like it? What if I lose? And this fear consumes our inner peace. But the mind that detaches says, let me give my all, and then surrender the rest. Detachment doesn't make you passive, it makes you powerful. Because now your focus is fully on action, not anxiety. You perform better when your mind isn't burdened by fear or desperation. One beautiful example of detachment is a gardener. He plants seeds, waters them every day, and nurtures them with care. But he doesn't pull the plant every morning to check if it has grown. He trusts the process. He knows that with time, patience, and sunlight, growth will come. That's what detachment looks like: doing your duty sincerely and trusting the universe to handle the outcome. The gardener's joy is in planting, not in rushing the bloom. In relationships too, detachment has a sacred place. We often expect others to behave a certain way, to respond to our love exactly as we want. But love that demands controls and fears loss is not love, it's attachment. True love is when you give your affection freely, without expecting anything in return. When you care for someone without needing them to validate you, your love becomes purer, more peaceful. That's the beauty of detachment. It allows you to love fully without losing yourself. The secret is to shift your focus from result-based living to purpose-based living. When you're driven by purpose, you're joyful while working, not only after succeeding. For example, a teacher who loves teaching finds joy in every class, not only when students score high marks. A musician who loves creating melodies finds peace in every note, not only when the song becomes a hit. The process itself becomes the reward. That's the joy of detachment. You no longer postpone happiness until the world claps for you. Let's be honest, detachment doesn't come naturally. It requires practice. The mind will always try to attach itself to outcomes because it seeks security in control. But detachment is about faith. It's about believing that there is a larger intelligence. Call it God, call it life, call it destiny, that knows better than we do. When you learn to trust that, even if something doesn't go your way, it's still leading you toward what's best for you, peace follows automatically. There's a beautiful calmness that comes when you stop forcing life to fit your expectations. You stop fighting what is and start flowing with what will be. Every experience, every success, and every setback becomes a teacher. Even failure starts feeling like redirection. You realize that life's timing is often wiser than your plans. And when you detach, you give yourself the freedom to learn, to grow, and to move forward without bitterness. So, the next time you find yourself worrying about an outcome, pause. Remind yourself that your job is the effort, not the result. Pour your heart into the doing and leave the rest to the divine order. Whether the result matches your expectation or not, your peace should remain untouched. Because when your happiness depends only on your sincerity, no one can take it away. Detachment doesn't make you emotionless, it makes you emotionally free. It teaches you to care deeply, but not cling desperately. And that is the essence of true happiness: giving your best, trusting the process, and walking with faith that every outcome, pleasant or not, is shaping you into who you are meant to become. When you live with that understanding, every effort feels fulfilling, and every day becomes a victory of peace. Celebrate small steps. This is one of the most overlooked secrets of happiness. We live in a world that glorifies big achievements. We are taught to celebrate only when something grand happens. When we graduate, we get promoted, buy a house, or reach some visible milestone. But life isn't made up of grand moments alone, it's made up of countless little steps, quiet efforts, and invisible victories that happen every single day. When you learn to celebrate small steps, you stop postponing happiness until some future date. You start realizing that every little progress, every bit of effort, and every moment of courage is worth celebrating now. Think about how a child learns to walk. The first time the child takes one shaky step and falls, the parents don't scold or say, "You didn't reach the finish line." No, they clap, cheer, and celebrate that tiny step as if it's the biggest achievement in the world. That encouragement gives the child confidence to try again. Slowly, the steps become steadier, and one day, that same child runs freely. Now imagine if we all treated our own progress with that same love and patience. Imagine if we cheered for ourselves the way we cheer for a child. We would stop being so harsh on our journey and start enjoying the process of growth. The truth is, success doesn't arrive suddenly, it's built quietly, one small effort at a time. A person who saves a few rupees daily may not notice change at first, but after months, those small savings grow into something meaningful. A person who spends just 10 minutes a day reading may not feel wiser in a week, but after a year, their mind expands in ways they never imagined. Great transformations are always born out of small, consistent actions. But the reason many people give up is because they fail to see progress in the beginning. They look for fireworks, and when they don't see any, they stop trying. That's why celebrating small steps matters. It keeps your spirit alive during the quiet phases of growth. I once met a young man who wanted to lose weight. In the beginning, he went to the gym for 3 days and felt no difference. He got discouraged and said, "What's the point? Nothing's changing." His trainer smiled and said, "You may not see the change yet, but your body does." He encouraged him to celebrate each day he showed up, not each pound he lost. Slowly, the young man began to enjoy the process. He celebrated waking up early. He celebrated resisting junk food. He celebrated feeling more energetic. After a few months, not only had he transformed his body, but also his mindset. He learned that progress isn't about perfection, it's about persistence. In the same way, when we celebrate small steps, we train our mind to see progress instead of lack. The mind always has two choices: to focus on how far you still have to go, or to notice how far you've already come. Most people live in the first mode, constantly comparing themselves with a future version that doesn't yet exist. That comparison breeds frustration. But when you learn to pause and appreciate every small win, finishing a task on time, staying calm in a stressful situation, saying no to something unhealthy, or simply showing up despite fear, your heart fills with strength. You start realizing that success isn't a single event at the end of a road, it's the way you walk that road. Let's look at nature for a moment. A seed doesn't become a tree overnight. It breaks open quietly underground before anyone notices. Then a tiny sprout emerges, fragile, almost invisible. But if you look closely, that small sprout is proof that growth is happening. The same is true for our lives. Many times, your progress isn't visible to others, or even to yourself, but it's happening silently within you. Maybe you're learning patience, discipline, or resilience. Maybe you've learned to respond calmly to something that once made you angry. Those invisible shifts are signs of great inner growth. You must celebrate them, because that's how roots strengthen. Celebrating small steps also builds motivation. When you recognize your efforts, your mind feels rewarded and wants to do more. It's like giving your soul a gentle pat on the back. For instance, if you're learning a new skill and you manage to practice daily for a week, don't wait until you're perfect. Celebrate that consistency. If you're trying to improve your relationships and you handle a disagreement with kindness, appreciate that progress. The more you honor your small victories, the more your confidence expands. There's also humility in celebrating small steps. It teaches you to be grateful for progress instead of obsessed with perfection. You begin to understand that growth is not a competition, it's a journey. The joy lies not just in the destination, but in the daily movement toward it. You start feeling content without being complacent, proud without being arrogant. Each small celebration becomes a reminder that life is unfolding exactly as it should. So many people live in someday mode. Someday when I have enough money, I'll be happy. Someday when I'm successful, I'll relax. But the truth is, someday never comes unless you learn to find joy today. When you celebrate small steps, you bring happiness into the present moment. You stop living in not yet and start living in right now. Every morning you wake up is a small victory. Every time you choose peace over anger, you've grown. Every time you show kindness when it's difficult, you've evolved. Life is full of these micro moments of progress, and each one deserves recognition. Remember, great journeys are not made by giant leaps, but by small steps taken consistently with faith. Don't wait for a grand success to feel good about yourself. Feel good about every little act of courage, every quiet effort, every moment you didn't give up. When you learn to celebrate the small steps, happiness stops being a distant reward. It becomes your daily companion. And in that space of quiet joy, true progress naturally unfolds. Don't compare journeys. This simple truth can save so much peace in our hearts. Yet it's one of the hardest lessons to live by. From the moment we wake up, comparison follows us like a shadow. We compare our looks, our achievements, our relationships, our pace of progress, even our happiness with others. But comparison is a silent thief. It doesn't just steal our joy, it blinds us to our own blessings. Every soul is walking a path that is designed uniquely for them. When you forget that, you start feeling like you're behind, even when you're exactly where you're meant to be. We live in a time where everyone's life is on display. Open your phone and you'll see people showing their best moments, new cars, vacations, celebrations, milestones. And without realizing it, your mind whispers, look at them. They're ahead. Why am I not there yet? But remember, social media is not real life. It's a highlight reel. You see their smiles, but not their struggles. You see their success, but not their sleepless nights. You see their glow, but not their growing pains. Comparison makes you forget that every beautiful flower blooms at its own time. The rose does not envy the lotus, and the lotus doesn't hurry because the rose bloomed first. In life, timing is divine. A mango tree and a pine tree don't grow at the same speed, yet both serve their purpose beautifully. You might be in a phase where things are moving slowly, but that doesn't mean you're not progressing. Some flowers bloom in the spring, some in autumn, and some only once a year. Life has its seasons too. Maybe right now, your season is preparation. Maybe the world doesn't see your growth yet, but beneath the surface, your roots are strengthening. There was once a young man who went to a park daily and watched joggers run past him. Every day he'd tell himself, tomorrow I'll start running. But he kept delaying it because he felt embarrassed. He thought everyone would run faster than him. One day, he finally gathered the courage and began jogging slowly. He couldn't even complete one lap. People passed him easily. He felt discouraged but didn't stop. He returned the next day and the next. Weeks later, his pace improved. Months later, those same joggers who once passed him were cheering him on. He realized that the moment he stopped comparing and started focusing on his own rhythm, he found both peace and progress. The real competition was never with them. It was with the person he was yesterday. Comparison tricks us into believing that we must all move in one straight line. But life isn't linear. It's beautifully unpredictable. One person may find success early but lose peace later. Another may struggle for years but find deep joy in the end. The journey of the caterpillar looks slow and silent until one day it becomes a butterfly. Don't curse your cocoon just because someone else is already flying. Your wings will come when you're ready. Think about a student in a classroom. Some grasp concepts immediately, others take more time. But in the end, both learn. The pace doesn't define intelligence, it defines difference. Similarly, your pace doesn't define your worth. You're not behind, you're on your own timeline. Every delay, every detour, every pause, it all has a purpose that will make sense one day. When you compare, you lose focus on your path. But when you trust your journey, you move forward with peace, not pressure. Comparison also destroys gratitude. It makes you blind to the blessings you already have. You might have a peaceful family, but you'll envy someone's luxury lifestyle. You might have good health, but you'll wish for someone else's fame. You might have a steady job, but you'll want someone's freedom. Gratitude disappears when your eyes are always looking at what's missing instead of what's present. Happiness grows not from getting what others have, but from recognizing the beauty of what's already yours. There's a story of two friends who planted the same type of seeds at the same time. One plant grew quickly and bore flowers within weeks, while the other took months. The slower one seemed lifeless for a long time, but one morning it finally sprouted, and its flowers turned out to last longer and bloom brighter. Life was silently shaping it for a stronger bloom. The same happens with us. You may feel like others are moving faster, but what's meant for you will never pass you by. When your time comes, No one can stop your light from shining. Learn to celebrate others without diminishing yourself. When someone else succeeds, it doesn't mean you failed. Their win doesn't take away your worth. The sun doesn't stop shining just because the moon glows at night. Each has its time to shine. When you can genuinely be happy for others, you free your heart from jealousy. You move from envy to inspiration. You start seeing others' success as proof that something good is also possible for you. When you stop comparing, life feels lighter. You begin to see that peace doesn't come from being ahead of others, it comes from being aligned with yourself. You don't need to run faster, you just need to run true. Focus on your growth, your lessons, your timing. Trust that the same force that makes the stars shine and the flowers bloom is guiding your journey too. So next time you look at someone and feel you're falling behind, pause and remind yourself their story isn't yours. You have your own script written by the divine hand of timing. Walk your path with gratitude, patience, and faith. You are not late, you are not less, you are simply unfolding at your own divine pace. And when you start seeing life that way, comparison fades, peace grows, and happiness walks beside you every single day. Serve beyond self. This is where true happiness begins. We live in a world that constantly teaches us to think about me, my goals, my success, my image, my comfort. But the moment you shift from me to we, life changes its rhythm. When you learn to serve beyond yourself, to do something that uplifts another person without expecting anything in return, you touch a joy that no luxury, fame, or achievement can ever offer. Because deep inside every soul is a quiet longing to feel useful, to feel like we've made a difference. And that longing is fulfilled only when we serve. Think about it. Every single day, we interact with people who are silently fighting battles we know nothing about. A smile, a kind word, a little help may not change their entire life, but it could make their day lighter, their heart warmer. Sometimes we think service has to be something grand, like building schools or feeding hundreds. But the truth is, service begins in the smallest gestures, listening with full attention, offering a word of comfort, or simply choosing to be kind when it's easier to be indifferent. It's not about how much you give, but how much heart you give. Let's take an example from daily life. There was once a woman who worked in a busy office. She noticed that one of her colleagues, usually cheerful, had become withdrawn. Instead of ignoring it, she took a moment to ask gently, "Are you okay?" That one question opened a floodgate. Her colleague had been going through deep personal pain. That small act of concern didn't solve everything, but it gave that person something invaluable, the feeling of being seen. Often, people don't need advice or solutions, they just need someone to remind them they matter. And when you become that person, you're serving beyond self. Service doesn't just help others, it transforms you. When you start giving, your perspective widens. You begin to realize that the world is bigger than your worries. Your problems start to shrink when you see how much good you can still do for others. It's like lighting another candle. Your flame doesn't get smaller, it multiplies the light. The more you share your time, your skills, your love, the richer your soul becomes. And in that richness, happiness flows effortlessly. We've all seen people who have everything materially, yet still feel a void inside. They chase new achievements, new experiences, new things, but nothing fills that emptiness. Why? Because happiness cannot exist in a heart that only takes. Joy grows in a heart that gives. Service fills that invisible gap that success can't. When you do something meaningful for others, you feel connected to something greater than yourself, to humanity, to kindness, to the divine flow of life. There was once a taxi driver who shared a story that deeply touched me. He said that every evening, after finishing his work, he would buy a few sandwiches and hand them to homeless people near his road. He said, "I don't have much, but when they smile, it feels like my day has purpose." That's the beauty of serving beyond self. It gives you purpose that money can't buy. It turns an ordinary life into a meaningful one. Even in the smallest of roles, you can serve. A teacher doesn't just teach subjects, she shapes lives. A parent doesn't just provide food, they nurture values. A friend doesn't just share laughter, they carry part of your sorrow. Service isn't always a grand act, it's a daily expression of love. It's about asking yourself, how can I make someone's path a little easier today? There is also a deep spiritual beauty in service. When you serve selflessly, you align yourself with the higher purpose of life. You begin to see that you're not separate from others, that the same divine energy flows through all of us. Serving others becomes a way of serving the divine itself. You start recognizing God not just in temples or prayers, but in the eyes of every person you help, in the relief on someone's face, in the gratitude of a stranger. Every act of service becomes a prayer in motion. And something magical happens when you give from the heart. Life gives back. Not always in material form, but in peace, in contentment, in unexpected blessings. You'll notice that the more you give, the less you worry, the more you help others rise, the higher your spirit feels. Service doesn't drain you, it energizes you because love is the only energy that grows when shared. We often think happiness comes from getting what we want, but deeper happiness comes from being what others need. When you hold a door open, when you forgive someone, when you encourage someone who's about to give up, these small, quiet acts ripple outward in ways you'll never fully see. You might forget them, but the people you touch will remember them for years. Serving beyond self is not about having extra time, it's about having extra heart. You don't need a title, a position, or wealth to make a difference. You just need the willingness to care. Each morning when you wake up, ask yourself, whose day can I make better today? That one question can turn ordinary days into meaningful ones. In the end, service is not about changing the whole world, it's about changing your inner world. The more you give, the lighter you feel. The more you help, the happier you become. Because when your heart beats, not only for your own life, but for the lives around you, you start to experience what real happiness feels like. A happiness that doesn't depend on what you have, but on how much love you give. And that's the purest form of joy a human being can ever experience. When we talk about happiness, one of the biggest thieves of it is the silent competition that runs in the background of our minds. From childhood, we are conditioned to compete, to be the best in class, to get the highest salary, to buy the newest car, to look better than others. The problem is this competition never ends. Even when we win, it feels like a temporary victory because someone else is already ahead again. The race continues endlessly, and happiness becomes something that depends on being better than someone else. But what if we change that equation? What if, instead of competing, we focused on learning? What if, instead of comparing, we focused on growing? You see, happiness is not found in being ahead of others, it's found in being better than who you were yesterday. Think about it. When a child learns to walk, we celebrate every little step, every small wobble, every moment they rise again after falling. Nobody compares that child to another child. The joy is in the learning itself. But as we grow older, we forget that spirit. We start to walk, talk, earn, and live not for the joy of growing, but for the fear of being left behind. That's why so many people who seem successful on the outside are miserable within. They've achieved everything, but lost the joy that comes from simple, sincere learning. Imagine you're sitting in traffic. You're late, impatient, frustrated. You look at the next lane and see cars moving faster. Instinctively, you switch lanes, thinking it'll get you ahead, only to see that now your old lane starts moving faster. It's funny, right? But that's exactly how we live life. We keep switching lanes, jobs, friends, goals, chasing the illusion that someone else's lane is faster. But peace doesn't come from chasing, it comes from mastering the lane you're already in. When you stop comparing and start learning, progress becomes peaceful. There's a beautiful story about a bamboo tree. When you plant a bamboo seed, for years nothing seems to happen. You water it daily, nurture it, protect it, and yet not a single shoot appears. You might even feel like your efforts are wasted. But then, after years of quiet growth underground, one day the bamboo suddenly shoots up and grows over 80 feet tall in just a few weeks. You see, during all those years, the bamboo wasn't doing nothing. It was growing roots strong enough to support its rise. The same is true for us. In the process of learning, you may not always see visible progress. Others might look like they're ahead. But deep within, your roots are growing, your patience, your resilience, your wisdom. And when the time comes, you too will rise, not just high, but strong. When we focus only on competition, our happiness depends on someone else losing. But when we focus on learning, our happiness depends only on our willingness to grow. One gives stress, the other gives peace. One makes you feel like you're running out of time, the other makes you realize you're right on time. And when you live with this mindset, life becomes lighter. You don't take every failure as an insult, you see it as instruction. You don't take every mistake as a setback, you see it as a stepping stone. You don't envy someone's success, you get inspired by their journey. Let's take an example from daily life. Imagine two colleagues working in the same company. One keeps comparing his performance, his salary, his praise with the other. Every time his colleague gets appreciated, he feels a little smaller inside. He works harder, not out of passion, but out of pressure. The other, however, focuses on learning. He listens, observes, and grows. He sees his colleague's success as proof that growth is possible, not as proof that he's behind. Over time, the second person not only progresses more, but remains peaceful through it, because he's not competing, he's evolving. The joy of learning is subtle but powerful. When you shift your focus from competition to learning, you stop trying to prove your worth and start improving your worth. You don't need validation, you find fulfillment. You begin to enjoy the process, not just the prize. You start reading not just to score marks, but to gain wisdom. You work not just for a paycheck, but for purpose. You speak not to impress, but to express. That's when happiness becomes a byproduct of growth, not a condition of victory. Life will always have people ahead of you and behind you, and that's okay. The goal is not to outpace anyone, but to outgrow your past self. The day you realize that your only competition is the person in the mirror, your entire world changes. You wake up peaceful, you work joyful, and you rest grateful. You stop rushing and you start flowing. You stop fearing others' progress and you start celebrating your own path. When you learn instead of compete, you align with your true nature. You become humble enough to accept you don't know everything and courageous enough to keep learning anyway. You start enjoying the simple things, a conversation, a failure that taught you patience, a challenge that expanded your understanding. You begin to smile at life's lessons instead of resenting them. And that smile, my friends, is the true mark of happiness, not the forced smile of achievement, but the genuine smile of awareness. So today, as you move forward in your journey, ask yourself, am I competing or am I learning? Because one will keep you running, the other will help you rise. When learning becomes your way of life, happiness no longer depends on winning. It flows naturally from within you. And that truly is how we progress every day, with joy in our hearts and peace in our steps.